whoa.
Do we like pirates?
You tell me.
I don't know. Do we? Do we like
It's
modern
your podcast?
Do we like? No, it's not. It's yours. Is it ours?
Yeah.
No, it's ours. I'd say it's ours.
Yeah, I call myself a co-host.
I too would co-host this podcast with you. Oh, that went down the wrong way. Oh no.
Sounded like it, yeah.
Oh, that really hurt my mouth. Oh, hello everyone. Hello
no
everyone.
Way. There's no way. Is that how we're starting it?
That's how we're starting it. Oh, I almost choked to death on my drink. Hello everyone. How are you all? It's good to hear. Here. It's good to know that you're all on the other side of our voice right now.
It's good to hear that you're doing well, because I know that when John asked, you answered, and if you didn't, that's rude.
Yeah, that's really mean. I would really prefer you just say, "Oh, I'm doing great, John." No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We got told off for doing that, Jack. We're not doing that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, we got told off for doing that.
Sorry.
All right.
Everyone.
Well, welcome back to the Real Talk, Not So Roundtable Talk podcast. Welcome back to the Real Talk podcast. This is a podcast where me and Jack just talk about history stuff, maybe sometimes touch on like current political stuff, talk about timelines and
my drink all over the desk
and the world and we make silly jokes while we're doing it, unless it's really, really iffy and then we're very serious and that kind of thing. This is episode what? 11? 12?
Yeah.
11.
11.
Oh my god. We didn't really celebrate episode 10 very well.
Yeah, we forgot.
We made it to double digits, but we did do it, and I hope you guys did enjoy last episode. I quite liked last episode. I thought it was a good one.
It was fun. It was fun and goofy.
It was.
We mucked around a little bit.
What did we talk about last episode?
We talked about Crypto Zoo.
Crypto Zoo, yes, and Helldivers 2. I remember. Yeah. Helldivers 2 update, guys.
Helldivers 2 update. Say, John called me on Discord. We jumped into a Discord call. He immediately started telling me about Helldivers.
Hang on,
I still haven't played it.
No, why not?
I'm busy.
What the hell?
Tell me what's happening in Helldivers 2.
All right, guys, hang on.
Come on, man.
All right, welcome to Helldivers 2 update. So what's going on in the world of Helldivers 2? Well, we've pushed the we've pushed the robots back to one sector. In doing so, the expeditionary forces on Malevolent Creek were holding fast. They were holding strong. They got reinforcements for the first time in a hot minute. However, we did fail to defend the next sector. Although we pushed them back to one, they've kind of pushed out again. So we need reinforcements on the robot side. For once, the Galactic Orders weren't against the Terminids. They were actually against the robots, which meant that a lot of the player base went over and helped, which is great. Good job there. Terminids also pushed back 2 sectors. Fantastic. I'm just getting a report in now from Super Earth Media. They don't fly. That's a lie. If you think that the bugs fly, report yourself to your nearest democratic free speech officer. Thank you. More reinforcements as well with new stratagems and the first wave of the robot recycle program, I think is what we're calling it. We have our own mechs now, but we're getting multiple new variants coming very soon. Yeah, there's your Helldivers 2 update. Should I play that? Hang on. Let me, hang on. All right, that was your Helldivers 2 update. Cool. Love you guys.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, did you like that?
Yeah.
Did you
like a big fan of that. I was gonna also play a different type of type of sound, but it was actually going to be ASMR boyfriend crashes his car and fucking dies.
No.
So
We can't play that. We'll get I don't know if I think that's a
we
thing.
get copyright claim. He can't copyright claim us. He died in a car
Yeah,
crash.
he did. Maybe his company will be mean to us.
His company.
What else do we have to talk about? I wanted to talk about some things before we got into today's topic, which, by the way, if you're excited about, we're talking about the Golden Age of Piracy, baby. Yar, pirates and stuff. So if you're into that,
You wouldn't steal a handbag.
stick around. You wouldn't steal 1,000 ducats worth of Spanish gold.
You said piracy, and that's what I thought.
Yeah, you wouldn't steal a baby, that kind of thing. So we're talking about that, but first I want to touch on something a little bit important to me. And obviously like a little update on something we spoke about a few episodes ago, because obviously a lot of time has passed. So I'm going to talk about Gaza just for a little bit. If you don't want to hear it, I'm going to squeeze it into 5 minutes. So you can
Start the timer.
You can skip 5 minutes from this point, and we won't be talking about it anymore if that's something you don't want to hear. However, I would advise you all to do something about what I'm about to tell you. Meta have been told by the American government, as far as we are aware, I am aware, as far as I've read, to automatically silent roll out a feature that if you haven't changed yet, means that you won't see a lot of political content. So they rolled out a almost like a censorship rollout. It's called like limit political content feature. If you go into Instagram, I'm kind of giving you on the go kind of instructions here. So you just open the Instagram app.
This out right now.
Yeah, go into the Instagram app, click on your profile, click on the 3 little lines at the top right, and then if you just search up content, oh no, it's political, I think, or limit. No, how do you find it? Oh no, I've absolutely whiffed this.
He's whiffed it.
I've whiffed it. It was content, wasn't it? Unless they've removed it and I'm lying. Oh no. Have they removed it? No, surely not. You might be able to see it. But if you search up at the top, limit. Oh, here we are. Right. So if you scroll down a little bit to about kind of halfway through your settings, there'll be underneath what you see, there'll be like favorites, muted accounts, and then it says suggested content. Now, under suggested content, there is a new section in there that they haven't told you about, that they've automatically turned on, and it was political content.
Oh, wait, is this in the settings or in Instagram settings?
This is in Instagram settings. In your Instagram settings. So if you head to your Instagram, then you click on your little picture down the bottom right, and then the 3 lines at the top right. Then you go to settings, I think. Yep, settings. Oh no, you just open it. It will just open your settings. And then you scroll down, and then it says suggested content. In there is political content. You want to don't limit political content from people you don't follow. What Instagram have done is they automatically made it so that it will limit political content from people you don't know. Now, they've done that because a vote/study was done recently in the United States alone, where the highest number of people that have ever been recorded to fill in one of these little survey things, and it was like, do you agree with what the US with the US supporting Israel in their invasion? And it was like a 60-40 yes to no. Now, what that means is, if you think of 40% of the US population, normally you don't think of 40% of those people not supporting their government. Generally, the US are very proud of their country, and every country really should be. However, it's a very, very high number of people that do not support their own government's doings. Now, with that push on support, it's meant that in proxy, the person who's in charge, which at the moment is Biden, will not be receiving votes from a lot of people because they are showing that they themselves also support the Israeli occupation and invasion of Gaza, because they're allowing it to happen by vetoing or they were until the recent vote, but they vetoed 4 different ceasefires in the UN because the US are a permanent member of the Security Council of the UN, which means that they can veto any vote, which means that it doesn't happen. So even if every other person in the UN voted yes, the US could go no, and then it would just kick it all out. Now, the problem with that is that it means that Israel were legally allowed to continue what they were doing. They were legally allowed to block support and aid to the people of Gaza. And so the US continued to let that happen. And it's a very unpopular thing. Now, their most recent vote, the US, instead of saying, like, vetoing it, they just abstained, which means they didn't vote, which means the vote went through, which means the UN is now in the position where they have requested Israel to pull out all forces. However, the UN requested that, but in the actual resolution that the vote was done for, the only two things that Israel have to do is allow aid in, so stop barring all the aid into Gaza, and release all the hostages on both sides. Now, as far as we're aware, that hasn't happened. Ceasefire has also not happened, which means another resolution will have to be made for further acts, which the US can veto over and over again. What the US and anyone who supports Israel is trying to do with things like limiting Meta and banning TikTok and that kind of thing is not let you see free speech political content. If you see anywhere an application that limits your intake of political content, whether good or bad, they are attempting to censor you, which is very against any idea of free speech, of free press, anything like that. Whether it's coming from a person, whether it's coming from a government, you should be able to be allowed to see and intake whatever political content you want. Now, for an app that you use so regularly, especially Meta, which is spread across many different apps, to then limit your content so that they can control specifically what you see. So make sure if you do have Instagram and you do intake political content on there, you fix that setting as quick as you can. If I didn't explain it well, you can just Google it. There's plenty of videos and Instagram posts and all those kind of things out there to explain how to fix it. And this whole thing that's going on in the US and across some countries in the world with TikTok is another way that they are just attempting to remove your ability to intake free people and public created political content. And to tell you the truth about things because they can't control it. So I just wanted to put that out there. I've kind of squeezed this into 5 minutes. Brief update on what's going on in Gaza. The UN have pushed for a ceasefire. It's finally gone through after the US vetoed it 4 times. And the ceasefire isn't even a ceasefire. It's just let us give food to these people that are starving to death and please release the hostages, of which Israel still haven't done. So another few resolutions we'll have to go through to try and do anything more. Will it go through? I don't think so, but we'll see. Now, onto some more fun topics. Thought I'd just touch on those first because it's quite informative and important.
Can you play the fun topic music?
I'll play. Hang on. I don't know what's the fun topic music?
I don't know. Find something. Just like Fred Flintstone running in place or something.
I don't know. I don't know
it's
if
that cartoon running sound.
I've just opened the Helldivers 2 intro music again.
Okay,
I just play that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't think that works. Okay. Today we're talking about oh wait, I know exactly what to play. You won't hear it, but I'm gonna play it. All right, I'm playing Sea Shanty 2 from RuneScape. All right. So, welcome, guys. We're talking about pirates today. Woo! Pirates! Yippee! Jack,
Yay.
What's a pirate?
That's the guy with the parrot on his shoulder and the hook hand and the eye patch.
That's a pirate. Yar, am I right, friends?
And I think that was 100% of pirates back in the day.
They were bloodthirsty killers, right?
Oh.
No? You didn't know that?
Nope.
What? Really?
I didn't know they were bloodthirsty killers. You were saying that you wanted to be a pirate. I
Yeah.
didn't see you as a bloodthirsty killer.
Yeah, but kill like rich people and steal their money. It sounds great. I'm a socialist. That's what all of us want to do.
Oh, pirates were just socialists.
Pirates
okay, were like
socialists, Jack. Let's segue that. That's perfect. Well done, Jack. See, Jack knows what he's talking about. So pirates, right? The actual term pirate comes from the other term privateer. So a privateer, they kind of started to come around like the 1600s, mid 1600s, around the time where cannons became a lot more common on boats, and when there were a lot more different type of ship types developed around the world. So up until around the mid 1600s, most countries, especially Western ones, would use like the same boat to kind of traverse seas. You had a galleass, which was a rowboat, like a big long rowboat, similar to like what you imagine like like a long ship, like a Viking long ship. You ever seen one of those? So how they had all the rows off, all the rowing things off the side. A galleass would do that. That was kind of generally. They were used very commonly in like the Mediterranean, like a closed sea area that didn't go out into the ocean. Very maneuverable in those places. Anyway, there was that, and then there was like a carrack, which I can send you a picture of. But for the people at home, a carrack was a very funny looking boat. It went up and then down and then up again. It's a very strange looking boat, but I want to say they were developed by the Portuguese to traverse the ocean.
Wow, you're right. It really does go up and down.
It's a very strange looking ship, isn't it? So that was kind of the first European great sea traversing boat was a carrack. And then there were like little transport boats, which were used like mostly like across like coastlines and stuff. So around the 1600s, that's when things like frigates and multi-decked large warships were being developed. And this was when like colonial empires were starting to become a thing. So the Spanish were around, the Portuguese were around, the English, the French. All of these countries have been like colonizing sections in the Americas, in Africa, that kind of thing. And so what kind of happened in this kind of 1650, 1670 kind of period is there English and French people were fighting against Spanish people. So the Spaniards were kind of fucking around with each other.
Oh.
They were there. How do I put it? So Austria had a king. Their name was something something, and the name ended with Habsburg, right? They were a royal family. They're very well known for both inbreeding and being on a lot of thrones at the same time. So the Austrians were on like the Croat, Hungarian, Spanish, Burgundian, and Austrian throne all at the same time. They had wham chins, like pretty big chins. Pretty strange chins, not gonna lie. Oh, I love it. It's such a fucking stupid thing. All right, just like look up Habsburg, Habsburg at home if you want to know. But they were very known for being quite like inbred and that kind of thing. Now, the Habsburgs took control of the Spanish throne. Now, by doing this, the French were like, I don't like that idea, and then attacked Spain.
Oh, no.
And then the English were like, I don't like you attacking Spain, and attacked and helped Spain, but also fought against the French, and then the Spanish colonies at times were helping both sides. So in other words, all like, and then the Portuguese were also kind of flip flopping from each way. So the all of the kind of colonizers of Europe of the time period are all fighting each other. And what that means is that all of their colonies are also fighting each other, because they're all like shooting up each other and like killing each other for land and all that kind of thing. Because what a lot of people don't realize is like the colonies were governed separately. So similar to like certain countries in the Commonwealth now, Australia is like, imagine Australia, right? You know how we're like, Australia is like its own thing.
Yeah.
But it still has the king as the king, right? The king is still considered in Australia, because we're a federation, not a republic, still the highest form of government.
Right.
The colonies were very similar. But unlike Australia, the colonies would give a portion of their resources and their money to their overlord, and the overlord would in turn give them support, safety, and expand them.
The actual like name of that role was the Overlord?
Yes, yeah, a colonial overlord. Colonial overlord, right?
And that's just the king, pretty much?
Pretty much. Well, the nation that was in charge of the colony would be considered the colonial overlord, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
So like the government, because like, for instance, the Dutch sometimes didn't have a king and sometimes did. Bit of a weird little state in the Netherlands, but yeah, they're just hanging out. So that's all like going on. Everyone's fighting each other. The English have this banging idea that, you know what? We can't attack Spanish colonies because we're technically on the side of Spain. But what if we didn't do it, but some people who happen to be English on their own boat that have nothing to do with us were doing it? So they hired people who, like, so they would go to captains of boats that had cannons and a decent armament and that kind of thing. And they go, here's a letter from us, the English throne. You are what's called a privateer. You are a private raider under the English throne. So it's not our navy specifically doing it, and you get to keep the money. But you are also disrupting large amounts of money from going to our enemies. So the English were not paying, but they gave practically like permission for certain crews and and people to become pirates under quote unquote protection of the English throne. So pirates were always outlawed in every, like, there was no, as soon as you became a pirate, you were like illegal everywhere. But what a privateer was, they still had a safe place to go, which would have been the place that paid them to be a privateer. So for instance, those pirates could now never go to France or Spain, but they could stop in England because they're a privateer for England. You know, it was raid for us, keep all the money, do whatever the fuck you want, kill as many people as you want, as long as they're not British, and as long as you come back here afterwards, you know, that kind of thing. So that's where the privateer comes from. It all kind of happened around the War of Spanish Succession, which is where the Habsburg and then the French were like fighting each other over Spain. And also in what's called the Stuart Restoration, which was when in England there was Richard Cromwell, which was when England had a civil war in the 1600s, they like fought and made a republic and threw out the monarchy. Have you ever heard the song in Horrible Histories where it's Charles II singing the Eminem song?
Probably, but probably not.
Where it's like, he's like, my name is, you know, anyway. He came back and he brought a bunch of shit back into it was great. I'm glad they put Charles II back in charge. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would have been cool to be a republic, but fuck me. Awful rulers. Anyway, they the English throne couldn't control their colonies, and so their colonies were raiding freely other colonies. It was a bit of a mess. And it was around that time period that people realized across all of Europe that if the colonies stopped producing goods and giving things to the overlords go fucking broke. Which is where the idea of privateering came from. Because it's not that the English monarchy needed the money that the privateers were stealing, it's that the other crowns needed the money. Yeah, exactly, right? So, during the Stuart Restoration, both the English and, like, the other colonizers were like, fuck me, like, the English were like, oh, we've got no fucking money, we've got no food, we've got no resources, we've got nothing coming in because we can't control the colonies because we're having a civil war. And then the other thrones were like, fucking hell, they're dying because they have no colonies. So that's where privateering kind of came around, and then the Spanish Succession War happened in like the early 1700s, and that's really where like pirates were like flourishing. That's really where like privateering happened. Now, all of that put aside, the when the Spanish War of Succession ended in 1726, Jack, okay, you keeping up with me here?
1726.
So when it ended, then that all the crowns were like, okay, no more pirating. We're all friends again, sort of. And so the pirates are like, oh, but that was we were making money, and it was fun.
You're shutting down our businesses.
Yeah, so what did they do? Become real pirates, baby. Now we get to kill everyone.
That's actually insane.
Yeah, right? They were like, fuck it.
Yeah, so they were just a bunch of angry people.
Yeah, they were like, fuck it. Who cares? We're just going to raid everyone now. So they did. And that's when we get things like Blackbeard and Jack Rackham and all that kind of thing. That's that kind of time period where everyone was like, oh, fuck it, let's just kill everyone, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. A lot of it all comes down really to colonial empires, because obviously, like, Spain had what was called the Spanish Main, which was Colombia, modern day Colombia, Venezuela, so all of northern kind of South America, all the way up Mexico. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, actually. For anyone following along at home, and if you're not 100% sure of the map, I'm just going to kind of briefly kind of outline the general areas where it is, but feel free to Google it if you're watching from home and you're not 100% sure. So all of northern kind of South America, so Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, that kind of area, all the way up Mexico, because they had all of Mexico, and all of the Caribbean, so all of those islands. That was what was called the Spanish Main. So that was like a big colonial area that the Spanish own all of, or 99% of, because a bunch of the islands in the Caribbean some of them were English, some of them were French. All of that, and so much money and resources were being shipped from there all the way over to Spain. Now, Jack, if you have a map in front of you, you'll know there's a big fuck off ocean between all of that area and Spain. All of the Spanish Main, so all of like northern South America, Mexico.
Oh, and to Spain.
To Spain. That's the route that these ships that would take weeks to sail had to go between. Now, when you've got boats carrying, like, in modern times, almost tens of millions of pounds worth of gold on one boat on its own, just sailing across there, how could you not be a little bit tempted to go for that, right? Now, imagine that happening bi-monthly for Spain, Portugal, France, and England. All of these ships loaded with thousands and thousands of, at the time it was ducats, was the kind of like European amount, like it was like the euro back then.
Thousands of it's mine now.
Literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, like weighted pounds, like of ducats, like traveling in this massive, vast ocean with no protection. Not to mention having to sail between all these little islands, all these little hidden, secret little hideouts that we can build on these islands. So as a pirate, fuck yeah, I'm taking those. Gimme, you know?
Thank you, please.
Like, pirating sort of did make sense. It was poor populations taking up sailing, because at the time, sailing was, like, the big job. And the easiest way to see the world, get around the world, get a new life, that kind of thing. Given permission by their governments to go raid other people's stuff. Then that's completely swept out from under them, and now they're forced to go like, well, we'll just raid everyone then. So the English in like the mid 1600s took a bunch of islands in the Caribbean, and then each island or each like major colony. So let's say Australia is a colony. We actually do still have one. Thinking about it, I completely forgot. We have a governor general. Do you know what that is in Australia?
Nope.
So the governor general is the person who reports back to the king about what's going on in Australia. Because Australia is still a federation under the English crown, right? Now think of that, but have you seen a map of all the places England has conquered?
I don't think so.
No.
Is that why the Australian flag has a Union Jack?
Yes, any country that has another country's flag in the corner, for instance, a Union Jack is probably the most common one you're going to see. Anything that has that in the corner, that means that yes, it was like British or English at one point. So all of that red, every country in that red, at some point had a governor general. So someone who was in charge. So the governor general isn't exactly in charge of Australia because it's a weird little federation system. But back then they would have been in charge of the country. And they were the ones that then reported back to the king and sent all of the stuff from the country to England to like get it all sorted out and stuff, right? Now, the governors of Tortuga, which is, if you've ever watched like Pirates of the Caribbean, that's the one where like it's a mess. That's like the wild place full of pirates. So Tortuga was the place full of pirates because all of the English governors of Jamaica, which is where Tortuga's from, I think, unless I'm completely lying, that might be where Port Royal actually is. Yeah, Port Royal is. Where all those places were, every single general of that place, every single governor, gave letters of marque, which is like you can go raid people, just out like anything. Right. If someone could walk into his office and go, I want to be a pirate, and they'll just hand them a letter. And that's it. Good to go. So, like, Port Royal, Jamaica, and Tortuga were churning out pirates.
Which is good for that area, right? Because that's right where, like you said, where...
Yeah. It's northern South America.
Yeah. Because, I was just noticing that there was... Is the red...
The red is
where they have governor generals? Is that
so?
What
The red, it was like the height of the British Empire. So at the time that we're talking about, this is where there would have been governor generals of all of these places.
Yeah, okay. Because I just saw that there was one in Jamaica, and then...
Yes. So the Jamaican area, obviously.
Yeah.
That sits so perfectly in the place where all of the boats that are leaving Mexico, North and South America have to sail past, which means imagine like 1,000 boats in that tiny little area, all pirating all these ships that are leaving.
Yeah.
It was impossible for things to get from South America home, right? At least during this war period.
Yeah.
Now, moving on from this, all the pirates were like kicked out of their job, and it was like, oh no, what the fuck do we do? So it kind of quietened down for a tiny bit. And then a man named Henry Morgan, kind of a goat, to be honest,
Oh.
Henry Morgan. Let me see if I can pull up a quick little thing. Here we are. So he raided Panama City, which is if on that map that I've sent you,
Mm-hmm.
do you see the tiny little sliver that connects Central America to South America? You see where it connects?
Yes, I see Panama.
So Panama is there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where now the Panama Canal is, which is how you can cross from one side to the other without going around South America. It's like a big canal that you can sail through the middle. He raided that when it was still just like a city. It was one of the biggest, most like richest cities in the area. Because, for instance, so the Spaniards, all of South America was owned by Spain except Brazil. That was Portuguese, right? All of South America was owned by Spain, which means that anything coming from Argentina or Chile or Peru or Bolivia, which is all on the left side of the continent, would sail up to Panama, then would be picked up by boats on the other side of the strait, and then be taken to Spain. So Panama became, even before the canal, was a way to get all of the gold that was on that kind of left side of South America over to the other side of over from the Pacific to the Atlantic, and then sailed home, right?
Okay.
So this pirate, absolute goat, sails in there, captures the whole fucking city, like himself, and then burns the whole fucking thing to the ground.
Crazy.
Now, he was captured by the English for doing this, and they were like, oh, we're going to kill you. But you know what they do instead? They sail him back to Jamaica. The governor of Jamaica pardons him, as he is a governor general. And like in Jamaica, he is practically the king of Jamaica, who then reports to the king of England. So he goes, nah, that was pretty goated. That's pretty cool. We'll let you off. Lets him off, knights the motherfucker, so he becomes Sir Henry Morgan, and then, when the governor dies, gives the governorship of Jamaica to him. So not only did he sack Panama, and who was then going to be killed for it, he instead becomes a knight and a sir, and then gets control of Jamaica himself, and then dies a peaceful death in his bed 20, 30 years later. What a life. What a life. What a king. Anyway, well, you could say, what a governor. So we did that. And that was kind of like the end of the like early pirating age. Kind of died down a bit when they were like, oh, you can't really pirate things anymore. So the pirates are like, well, fuck, what do we do now? You know, like, we can't pirate very well in the Caribbean because now there's English, Spanish, and French warships working together because they're not fighting each other anymore. They're now working together to fight pirates. Because obviously previously, France, Spain, and England all being at war meant that all their ships were shooting each other and not bothering with the pirates. But now they're not shooting each other, they're only dealing with the pirates, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. So they can't raid in the Caribbean anymore. So what do? They found that there's now a route created by the English pirates, who then everyone kind of followed, called the Pirate Round, which was a little place they could sail. The English colonies were like trading with each other. However, the French and the British kind of soured each other's relations, which means that Jamaica and Tortuga were not trading with each other anymore. And then there was like a big earthquake in Port Royal, like fucking all of like Jamaica. Like Jamaica got slaughtered by this earthquake, which is really rough. Yeah. So Caribbean regardless. Okay, so the governors now of Jamaica being broke as fuck because the earthquakes destroyed it. And now the fact that they can't trade with Tortuga because the English and the French don't like each other, and I've done what's called embargo, which is where money cannot be, or like goods cannot be traded between the two countries. So they're like trying to starve each other out just by like diplomatically, not by war. They're just like, fuck you, you can't trade anymore. So now the English and the French don't want to trade with the Spanish in the Caribbean. Don't know why. They just really don't like each other. And now the English and the French can't trade with each other in the Caribbean. And there was an earthquake. The people in Jamaica were like, we're fucked. We have no money. We have no food. Everyone's dying. So what do? They remove the policy of no peace beyond the line, which means that the any peace treaties in England don't count in the New World. So all these governors are like, fuck it. Go raid whoever the fuck you want. The Spanish Main was like pretty much raided into the ground. There was like no money here anymore. Way too many pirates, not enough plunder kind of situation. The Spanish and the Portuguese had started taking other routes to get money home. Had also started like sending warships with those ships filled with money. And so it just wasn't possible or profitable anymore.
Yeah, right.
So they were like, what do we do? Like, where do we raid? So where do they go? That's right. Over to India. So they sail from the Caribbean. So Northern South America. They go all the way along the African coast, raiding as they go, because sections of the African coast are owned by England, France, and Spain, and Portugal, and the Dutch. Loads of rich colonial places. Let's raid all those as we go. So they're raiding all those as they go, sail up the other side of Africa, and then over to India, where the riches are all going from like English colonies. And by the way, at this point, the English didn't own all of India. It was not a massive colonial East India company own everything yet. So there was still a lot of Indian princes and a lot of Chinese and Southeast Asian kingdoms that traded a lot with each other in that area. Now, India, before the British plundered all of it, was considered the richest subcontinent on the planet. So there was a lot of money and jewels and riches being moved around between this kind of region of like what we now know as Indonesia and India. All of these places were trading a lot with each other. No one's raiding it. Do you know who is now? That's right. White people. We've come down here, not only started a podcast, but started killing other people. So they've started like fucking this. At the time, things like silk and spices, which were not able to be grown in the New World, in North and South America, were all coming from Indonesia, China, and India. Indonesia, before it was known as Indonesia, was just called the Spice Islands. It was just where we would grow spices. And of course, these were worth so much money in Europe. So instead of taking a lot of money, they started raiding for goods and then selling the goods on what was the first black market. So they would go there and they would take these goods and then sell them slightly cheaper than what they would be normally, but would still make a fuck ton of money from it, you know? So they went over there, they started doing that. That's like in these regions are where we started to see, like, I don't know if you know of any like famous pirates, but like Henry Avery was a famous pirate.
I feel like I've heard that name.
Yeah, so he
What's with all the pirates named Henry?
I don't know. And then William Kidd or Captain Kidd. He was they were a pretty famous one too. They were like around there, that kind of region. Now let's like kind of going back to the Caribbean. The more things kind of go down here. So we get like a resurgence of pirates in the mid 1700s. This is when we get people like Benjamin Hornigold, Charles Vane. Pardon? Oh, they are horny for the gold. Yeah, 100%. So, like Charles Vane, Benjamin Hornigold, Samuel Bellamy. They're like pretty famous pirates around this time period.
Mhm.
So Port Royal and Nassau were raided. And then the province and the island of New Providence, which is where Nassau kind of is, which is in the Bahamas. So you know that map of England, that all the places that England that
Yeah.
controlled. So you see Jamaica, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see the little islands, not Cuba,
Yeah.
but the one above
Yeah,
that?
no,
All
I
those
have
little islands.
I have a separate map, and I can just make out where the words say the Bahamas, and
Yeah,
it's in like
so in the Bahamas,
1600 by
the
900.
big island kind of left side that's facing down, pointing down, that's New Providence. That's
Uh-huh.
where they founded the Republic of Pirates. There was
Fire.
a democratic republic in the Bahamas founded by pirates. So
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Now a bunch of pirates like fucked around here for a bit, kind of took the island, and then a new governor showed up, and with a bunch of like British ships, and kind of like destroyed it.
Mm-hmm.
The King of England then put out this thing called the Act of Grace, where if you go to a governor and say, I was a pirate, but I now wish to just serve the English crown, and by doing so will become a pirate hunter.
Whoa.
So the English kingdom, the kingdom of at the time Great Britain, were like, there's too many pirates. We need to deal with this. How do we deal with this? I know. We'll get pirates to fight pirates while we're busy off doing other shit. So they gave out the Acts of Grace. Now, Benjamin Hornigold, who was like one of the big pirates, if not one of the biggest pirates, he was the one who kind of led the Republic of Pirates to be built. He accepted this pardon and then decided to hunt other pirates, which was kind of like fucked up.
Yeah.
But you know who else accepted this pardon, Jack? You'll know this name. Blackbeard.
Ooh.
Blackbeard accepted the pardon and then went on and kept pirating, the cheeky cunt.
What?
Yeah, he kind of fucked it. Now,
You didn't
like,
do that? Is that illegal?
It was very illegal. Now the reason that pirating in the Caribbean kind of resurged was because of the rise of something what was called triangular trade.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I said, Spain owned practically all of South America. All of North America was pretty much owned by the British and some of it by the French. Now, a lot of Africa had just been colonized by the Dutch, the Spanish, the French, the English. Now, unfortunately, in this time period, this was where the sharp rise of slavery kind of began. Now,
and we don't like that.
No, we don't like that at all. Now,
take it from the Real Talk podcast. We don't like
take
that.
it from two white guys. We don't like slavery. Oh, cool. Two white guys, descendants of English, not fans of slavery. So,
sorry.
95% of slaves at this time period that arrived in the New World were from Africa. So it was called the Triangle Trade because the slaves would come from Africa. Then they would go to the New World, and then the goods from the New World were transported back into Europe, and then the same people that transported the goods from Europe would go back down to Africa, pick up slaves, then go over to the New World, drop off the slaves, pick up goods, go back to Europe, and it would be a triangle.
Right.
That's how merchants would make their money. Now, by the surging of this triangle trade, do you know what that means, Jack? That's right. More goods and unprotected boats were leaving the Caribbean. Let's go back and raid the Caribbean. Let's go back and pirate again, everyone.
Let's go.
Because it's not just the kingdoms who are now transporting, but it's just like private companies that are privately being boat people and transporting things on boats. So this is where we start to see the rise of capitalism, Jack. Yay!
Oh, no,
year.
we don't like
Oh no,
we don't like
no, we
capitalism.
don't like capitalism. So this is around where we see the rise of capitalism. So we see independent companies, taking their own, like purchasing their own fleets of boats, and then transporting slaves to the New World, and from the goods from the New World home, and that's where we start to see the kind of rise of that, which is funny because it was propelled by the idea of the black market pirates in Southeast Asia and in India, because the all the black market pirates were doing in Southeast Asia was stealing goods and then selling it themselves to make money rather than the crown making money. And then people in England and Spain and France were like, why don't we just sell slaves to buy goods to sell them in Europe? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But they were doing it quote unquote legally.
That's fucked up.
So that's where we see that's where we see like Blackbeard and you know that's pretty much where you see like Blackbeard. I mean, who else around that period? Like Steed Bonnet. Do you know who Steed Bonnet is? Edward Lowe.
Golden Hook.
And
Peggy.
Yep. Whoa, right.
And One-Eyed Dan.
So you see like Edward Lowe, William Fry, Steed Bonnet. Steed Bonnet is like pretty sort of famous because he was extremely rich and owned land in Barbados.
Whoa.
And then he was like, fuck it, I want to be a pirate. And he built a boat with his money and then raided a bunch of ships. But then was hanged a year later.
When you say he built a boat, do you mean like he paid people to build the boat?
Yeah,
for
he
him?
paid people to build a boat. Normally, what
it's like
pirates
when,
would
it's like
have
when
done.
people say like, oh yeah, we're building a house. It's like, no, you're not. You're just giving people money to build your house for you.
Normally, what pirates would have done is they would have been on a crew that was already privateering and then turned to piracy, or they would have like rose up against the people who owned the boat and then captured another boat and used that one. That's kind of like how it went. But he was so rich that he was able to build a boat, pay people to build a boat, and then sailed off and raided a bunch of people, but was hanged a year later. So he sucked.
He speedrun being a pirate.
He did. He sucked, but he was killed. He just paid to get his own boat built, which is just, to me, it's funny. It's really funny, the idea of that.
Yeah, it seems like stolen valor. He's he's like got all the money. He doesn't need to do this, but he's like, I wanna fit in with the cool kids. So he spent money to become a pirate, and then they're like, nah.
This was also the period where we saw people like Anne Bonny and Mary Read, who were the two like quote unquote famous female pirates, who both happened to be either in the crew or run the ship of a man named Calico Jack Rackham, who was let's have a look. He was, how do I put this? He was known as being very quote unquote eccentric.
Yay?
Possibly.
Fire.
But I believed he was bi because he had a relationship and was married to Anne Bonny and Mary Read at the same time. And all three were like co-captains of the same boat. Which is pretty cool. And it's believed that they were all romantically involved with each other. It's a very interesting story. When they were caught, Calico Jack was killed, and then Anne Bonny and Mary Read both claimed they were pregnant, which delayed their hanging until they both were killed later. However, which I always thought was really interesting, Anne Read died of fever in jail. However, Anne Bonny just disappears from history. There was no record of her being hanged. There was no record of her dying in prison. And there was no record of her giving birth. It was just, she just disappears from the books. She was put in prison. It was delayed because she said she was pregnant. And then that was it. Nothing else after that. Nothing in the history books, which I think is really interesting. And I'm
Why are we
curious
not
where
covering? Why are we
she
not covering
disappeared.
where she went?
I want to know where she went. Like, it's actually super interesting.
Let's get to the bottom of this, John. You and me.
It's super interesting. But she was cool. She was really cool. Super cool. She yeah. I hope that at some point someone does do some proper research and trying to find where she goes. But yeah, that was like the kind of golden age of piracy. You know, like eventually, unfortunately, all of these pirates, all these like famous big pirates that everyone loves and like talks about, you know, and you see them in games and in popular media and that kind of thing, you know, Blackbeard, Edward Teach, Blackbeard is Edward Teach, Black Bart, Charles Vane, Benjamin Hornigold, they all die, or they got like captured and disappeared. You know, Blackbeard very famously was caught, and his head was put on the end of someone's ship for like 4 years until it just rotted away.
Yuck.
Yeah, pretty gross. That kind of thing. So Captain Kidd was known as one of the last like pirates of that region. Everyone else was kind of like hanging about elsewhere. You know, there was the pirate round where a lot of pirates went over to India instead, which did kind of stick around until the late 1700s, but it kind of died off because of like the more private companies that got involved in shipping in that region, especially, for instance, the biggest private company that's ever existed, the East India Trading Company. No, the East India Trading Company, which was because what a lot of people don't know is that India was not ruled by the English. It was controlled by a giant company. The East India Trading Company was a business owned by business owners that happened to be English.
That's interesting.
And then Queen Victoria in the 1800s, we're talking 200 years after it was founded, eventually took control of it, which is why Victoria was the first empress of India who was English. Up until then, England didn't have control of India. A company that was English had control of India, which is super crazy.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it's also why it was so unmonitored, that the conquest of India. It happened so fast because it was a company doing it. They would either buy the princes out or just destroy them. And it took no strain on the English economy because it was a private company doing it. Realistically, the latest form of pirates were what was called the Barbary pirates, which were pirates in northern Africa. They were Tunisian and Moroccan and Egyptian. And they raided like ships coming in and out of the Mediterranean. And they sold white people as slaves, which a lot of people don't talk about. Almost 1 million or over 1 million like ships who were Italian, British, Spanish, French were captured and then sold to African warlords as slaves. Which is super interesting, I think. The kind of one of the most famous things the Barbary pirates did was they sailed out of the Mediterranean, went to Iceland, raided it twice, and captured 400 people. Which is crazy. Do you know where Iceland is, Jack?
I'm looking at the map.
So if you look at so
and
they
where
sailed.
did they come from?
So they came from Morocco, Tunis, Algeria, Libya. So northern Africa. Do you know where Egypt is in northern Africa?
Egypt in northern Africa. Oh, yep.
So all of the countries to its left, all that top part of Africa, all of it, they were all pirates, and they sailed all the way up to Iceland. Took 400 people captive and then sailed back down. Crazy. Do you know who destroyed the Barbary pirates? The Americans.
Dang it.
The Americans sailed.
Good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. It depends who you speak to. They sailed down there and were like, no, and destroyed them all because they captured an American boat.
Oh.
And they were like, we don't like that. And if the Europeans aren't going to stop it, we are. And they sailed down there and did that. But yeah, that was pirates. That was pirates. That was the golden age of piracy. That was kind of like when it happened, all the height of it and stuff. That's really it. Like, the pirates kind of died out by kind of like 1720 to 1730. No one, like, there was not really any piracy like on that kind of scale past that point.
Wow.
What do you think? How do you feel about that?
That was cool. I didn't even really know that pirates were such like an important part of history. I was just kind of like, oh, there was just like a couple of fellas that just wanted to, I don't know, steal some gold, and like I didn't realize that it was that big of a thing. So that's kind of crazy.
Realistically, though, Jack, the biggest pirates in the world, Europeans during this time period, anyway. So,
whoa,
they were the ones that stole everything from everyone else.
Yeah, that's all they do.
That's not like me being all like, oh, white guilt. Being serious.
All they do is steal.
For real, for real.
That's all they've been doing.
Yeah, that was pirates. That was pirates. And if everyone at home had anything to talk about pirates, you know, I didn't go into like, you know, Assassin's Creed Black Flag or anything.
Whoa.
But that was when I like Assassin's Creed Black Flag was when I was like thinking about like that's when I started learning that like pirates were actually a thing.
Yeah. They turned Assassin's Creed Black Flag into a real thing.
Because I always actually did think that pirates were just like, yar, like, oh, we started raiding people for money. But I didn't know they came from like government paid people who were then told that you can't do that anymore. And they were like, okay, and then did it anyway.
Like, how else are we gonna make our money, man?
And how they went everywhere. Like pirates really were like in Southeast Asia and India and, you know, Africa and America and all that kind of thing. Like they were everywhere. And I always thought that was so cool.
It gives me the vibes of like when the Vikings were going around everywhere as well.
Same thing, yeah, right? Yeah. Like it only takes like a small collection or an idea for people to be like, oh yeah, we can do that too. And then it happened and stuff. So yeah, that was cool. That was pirates.
I'm excited to, like, every time we record the podcast, I end up like going back and listening to it like a couple of days later when it's like not fresh in my brain, and I like it's almost like I've learned more stuff when I listen to it afterwards as well, because I think it's like I get to listen through and then be like, oh yeah, I remember when you were talking about that part, but like I didn't remember when you were talking about this part because I was so focused on a different part that you told me earlier. So like I get to listen through and then essentially listen to it twice and learn twice as much. Because how else am I going to pay attention in 1 hour without Subway Surfers?
Subway Surfers, let's go.
What's
the Subway Surfer music?
Bam! That's the only part I know.
Is that the
I think that was a Fortnite.
No.
Sounds like Fortnite.
When are they adding pirates to Fortnite? That's what I want to know.
When are they adding Subway Surfers to Fortnite?
When are they adding Subway Surfers
how
to
Fortnite? How are the pirates gonna sail so far without Subway Surfers? Like, don't you get bored?
What? Yeah, do you reckon pirates would watch YouTube while eating?
How do they'd watch TikTok while sailing?
How's TikTok while sailing? They needed Skynet. What the fuck is that? What it's called? What's the Elon Musk internet called?
I
don't think it's Skynet. That's wrong.
The only thing I can think of is Neuralink, and I know that is not it.
No, they're alive though.
I can't wait to get Neuralink and then watch TikToks while just doing everyday things.
They played The Sims,
like driving.
Not The Sims. They played Civ 6 all night with it. Apparently,
yeah, I heard. That's you.
That's me.
What you would have done.
All right, we're gonna end this one here. I want to say thank you so much to everyone for listening. I hope you all learned some things, even if it wasn't about pirates, even if things like how I was talking about the East India Company and you know, the little Spanish Civil Wars and things like that. Because oh my god, there's one of those every 50 years. I hope you all enjoyed and you loved it, and you know, we love you.
And if they did love it, John, what can they do?
What can they do? They can vote us 5 stars on Spotify, Jack. Because do you know what that does? What does that do, Jack? Bouncing
That
it back
gets
at
us
you.
up onto the charts for History Comedy Podcast.
And we're higher on the charts we are.
What do we do, John?
The more podcasts this is lame. The more podcasts we release. We love you all. We'll see you next episode. Thank you so much for listening. And
Kisses.
Kisses. Mwah.